Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of Red Raptor Writes. It is often said that a story is only as good as its villain, so if that were true, then we've got some seriously awesome comic book films over the past couple of years, like Spider-Man's 1 and 2 with Green Goblin and Doc Ock respectively, Avengers Infinity War with everyone's favorite purple car, Captain America Civil War with Iron Man, and The Dark Knight with Joker. As an audience, sometimes we get spoiled with such masterfully crafted antagonists, and sometimes we don't, thanks Marvel. But there happens to be one villain in particular who gets overlooked, and unfairly so in my opinion. Bruce Wayne's teacher turned adversary in Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul. Not only is he the perfect villain for Christopher Nolan's resurrection of Batman, but one of the best in all of cinema, yet everybody only seems to remember Heath Ledger's Joker. Heck, even Bane has gotten more attention than Ra's.
I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body?
Yeah, no, I still don't buy it. So, what makes Ninja Liam Neeson so amazing? Why should he be considered one of the best villains to be put on screen? Let's dig this up.
Oh, having trouble. Take a seat, have a drink. You look like a man who takes himself too seriously. Do you want my opinion? You need to lighten up.
Shortly after the opening of Batman Begins, Bruce Wayne and us audiences are introduced to Qui-Gon, are introduced to Schindler, are introduced to Ra's in a Chinese prison cell. Our introduction to the man is short and simple. He presents himself as Ducard, an ordinary man who is representing the great Ra's al Ghul, head of the secret organization, the League of Shadows, and they invite Bruce Wayne to join them. After being released on their say-so, the lost billionaire treks his way up a mountain to train with the League in the ways of justice and ninja-ing. It's here that we get to dive into the mind of our great antagonist. Like all tragic stories, it starts off with a woman, Ra's al Ghul's wife. Well, I don't know if that was his name back then, like who would name their son the Demon Head, but whatever, we're sticking with it. That's better than some loser name like George or something. So Ra's speaks of having a wife, only that she was taken from him years ago. The rage, the anger, the hate built up inside him like poison coursing through his veins, tearing him apart. In his own words, it almost destroyed him. That wasn't until he found the one thing that could relieve it: vengeance. Ra's al Ghul set off into the mountains to learn ways to combat injustice and give criminals their due punishment. Swift punishment, without mercy, without hesitation. Ducard eventually becomes a vigilante, determined to cleanse the world of injustice. Does this story sound familiar at all to you? A man losing his loved one due to senseless violence, feeling anger and pain because of it, going into the mountains to become a ninja, and then transforming into a vigilante who wants to bring justice to Gotham through fear? Sound familiar at all? Yeah, Batman and his rival in Begins are one and the same, which of course makes a lot of sense. Bruce trains under him and becomes his greatest student. This alone makes Ra's an intimidating character, being Batman's mentor, his better, making Batman the underdog in their climactic battle. But besides that, Ra's al Ghul informs Bruce Wayne, shapes who he is. He teaches Bruce to strike fear into the heart of his enemies, to disappear, to use theatrics, and that willpower is the greatest strength.
The training is nothing. The will is everything. The will to act.
This will isn't just a tool for Batman to use against his foes like Bane, but one that he'll give to the citizens of Gotham. The will to stand up to crime and corruption that plagues the city. Now let's jump back to that word for a minute, fear. Fear is the central theme of Batman Begins. Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot because Bruce becomes afraid of bats. He's then taught to control that fear and use it against his enemies. Taught by none other than, you guessed it, Ra's al Ghul. Batman uses fear to fight criminals and to give us one of the series' best moments.
Where are you?
Here.
But the Dark Knight isn't the only one who utilizes it. Crime boss Carmine Falcone uses fear to keep the entire city under his belt. Everyone from judges to prosecutors to cops are either paid off or too scared to touch him. He uses fear to keep Gotham under his control, corruption that Ra's will come to wipe out. Above him, as sort of a middleman, is Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. Crane uses fear, well, A, because it's fun watching people freak out, and B, to strategically move people around to set up the plans of the even bigger bad, of course, Ra's al Ghul. Just his power and influence, his name alone strikes fear into Falcone, and even Crane just speaking it. He uses this fear to control them into carrying out his master plan, which, what do you know, is scaring people to death with gas. All of the key players in Batman Begins use fear. It's the concept that ties them all together. But anyways, everything about Batman comes from Ra's al Ghul. All of his strategies, ideas, and tricks. Ra's is just a twisted perversion of Batman. Wait, scratch that. Batman is the perversion of Ra's al Ghul. You see, the League's ideology is simple and straightforward.
Crime, despair. This is not how man was supposed to live. The League of Shadows has been a check against human corruption for thousands of years. We sacked Rome, loaded trade ships with plague rats, burned London to the ground. Every time a civilization reaches the pinnacle of its decadence, we return to restore the balance.
Yup, the League brought balance through mass murder a whole 13 years before it was cool. Bruce Wayne was on the same path as Aslan, but his mind was infiltrated by the teachings of Rachel and Alfred, teachings of compassion and mercy.
What would you call that?
Compassion and mercy from me to you and you to me.
Damn good television.
So why does all this matter? Well, because it leads to an insanely compelling conflict between our hero and villain. When Batman's fighting Ra's, he's not just fighting Liam Neeson in a ninja getup, but fighting himself. He's fighting who he could be if he didn't have limits, who he used to be. This dichotomy between the two is super helpful in framing Bruce Wayne's character arc and his journey to becoming Batman. Who he used to be is highlighted by Ra's al Ghul, and that's contrasted with who he's become by the end of the film, Batman. Yes, we all love the Joker, who pushes the Batman to his limits, testing the strength of his resolve not to kill, but let's not forget that Batman Begins showed us what he would look like if his moral limits were broken. We're shown Ra's al Ghul, and then we see Joker and his potential to push Batman into becoming more like Ra's. That's partially the reason why Joker was so effective, and why The Dark Knight was such a phenomenal sequel, because of what came in Begins. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Yes, Batman is battling a version of himself who was not slapped by Rachel, but he's also battling other incarnations of Batman. You know, those god-awful versions of the character that don't lean into one of his most compelling character traits, refusing to kill. Look at Batman v Superman. Heck, just take a look at the 1989 Batman. These are the Punisher / Wolverine wannabe monsters Christopher Nolan's Batman is desperately trying to stop. They maim and murder and kill as a way to release the anger they've built up inside due to their mommy being shot. They'd like to pretend it's justice, but truly it's just vengeance. None of them ever grew up like Nolan's did. Vengeance is what saves them from the anger poisoning their bodies and destroying them. Just like Bruce towards the beginning of his arc when he's ready to shoot Joe Chill, just like Ra's al Ghul.
You never learn to mind your surroundings. Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Christopher Nolan's reimagining of everyone's favorite pointy-eared vigilante, Batman Begins, is easily one of, if not the best comic book film ever put to the big screen. But what is it about Begins that makes it so darn impactful? Is it the billionaire's character arc, going from a confused man seeking vengeance against lowlives to a hero who inspires others to take a stand? Is it the central theme of fear and how this tool is utilized by different players to achieve their own ends? Could it be the very grounded, realistic, and darker aesthetic of Nolan's world? Or how about the beautiful voice of Liam Neeson flowing through your speakers?
Revelation 21:6. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely.
Seriously, the day I meet my maker, I really hope he sounds like Liam Neeson. Anyways, the answer is all of these things. And of course, they all tie back to the main antagonist of Begins, Ra's al Ghul, a villain who's not only played by one of the greatest actors of our time, but who has such an intense presence when he's on and off screen, who informs the film's major themes, embodies the hero's arc, and leaves a scary reminder of who our hero can become without his moral code. For these reasons, I consider the antagonist of Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul, to be one of the best and sadly the most underrated in the genre. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and to always mind your surroundings. See you next time.